Hello, happy Sunday. It's Sunday where I am, but happy whatever day of the week it is wherever you are. So I thought I've come across something which would make a nice little demonstration now of where we're going with models. So I think where we're going with models is we're going to be seeing, instead of large behemoth models, and we've seen efficiencies in these behemoth models using a mixture of experts, which we've seen, for example, with DeepSeek, where instead of using the whole transformer space to be able to determine an answer to a question, it uses a router on entry to look at what's being asked and then to use a particularly relevant expert, which is a small subset of that transformer space, to be able to do things. So nano, micro, mini models are going to become more and more important because we're going to see more specialized models focused on specific tasks, so that you only need to use a model that is relevant to a specific task. And this is why I'm doing this demonstration, because it's focused on a specific task. Now we see more and more sort of AI IDs that people are using. There's some great ones: Cursor, Windsurf, Klein. You can use these for assisting you to write more code faster. There are a lot of issues with this potentially, one of which is the entropy that they can introduce, because they have to manage context behind the scenes, and the secret sauce behind a good one is how it manages that context. So that's one of the issues. The other issue, if you're learning in a space and you become dependent on these tools, you may not understand from first principles what it's doing, and therefore you may not have the capabilities to police it, and it's going to produce a very dumbed down development experience in terms of code and maintainability of code over time if this continues. Now, one of the key aspects, and if you look back over my LinkedIn, ahead of time I've predicted pretty much everything that's happened thus far in terms of where we're going to go. So I assume I'm kind of right here. Is I think we're going to see the next big thing in terms of generative AI is these smaller models focused on smaller tasks. We're also going to see better deterministic models. So a lot of code we write, for example, we might write a UI that's a set of forms that gathers a load of data that goes to a set of API endpoints that basically just talk to a database. Police and domain rules stick that data in the database and then pass it back to the UI. And that takes a lot of time to write, so years of person hours to be able to create one of these big UIs that may then go and pivot to a third party. What we're going to see over time as we get better deterministic models is capabilities to actually, rather than write more code faster, is the first thing is, actually, we should be writing less code, better code, cleverer code, rather than just increasing the volume of code we have to maintain. That's one thing we're going to have to learn how to leverage this tooling well, is actually not to be able to just basically spaghettyize the thing that we've already got and make it faster, bigger, more code to manage. But we're also going to be able to use inference on the fly, which requires the requirements of nano, micro, mini models to be able to do it, to be able to do things. So, for example, if you've got, now for me, like a vocal experience and a UI experience are probably based on the same business rules for that experience being generated. So you may take a load of information via a call that you may use AI to do, a chatbot experience, but a UI will be based on the same business rules about the kind of information I need to gather, how that then relates to the further information I need to gather. If I gather some information later, I may need to go back and reflect upon something that I've already said. And in fact, we can probably use inference to do a lot of this. So we can actually replace potentially these, not the whole UI, we're not talking about replacing the whole UI, but these kind of things which are very dynamic, which might pivot away to dozens of providers to use the inference to be able to assist in the gathering of that dynamically, to create a UI dynamically, to be able to persist the data dynamically, to react to validation dynamically, to then be able to then go and pivot that dynamically to a third party. That requires more deterministic models. But a great demonstration of that is seeing what you can do with these nano models now. So that's what I'm going with this demonstration. Now, I initially did this live because I quite like live demos, and then I had a load of requirements issues. So I didn't think you want to watch me wrestling with those requirements. But for those of you that want to try it, on the YouTube video, which is where you're probably watching this, I'll put the workarounds that I came across to be able to make it work. I then did a second one where I actually left the speaker on my TV on, so when I was obviously playing the the text-to-speech, there was a bit of an echo. So what I've done is I've gone away and re-recorded it because, it didn't sound as good as, it didn't do it fair justice, so I don't think that was fair. So this is just to make sure that it's a fair representation of what occurred. So in terms of what we need to do with this then, it's a pretty simple install. So you clone the repository, and if I pull it here, this is the Resemble AI Chatterbox TTS repository, and there are some instructions on there. So basically what you do is you clone the repository, you basically then change to the folder of the clone repository. Now I'm using Conda to maintain a segregated environment, so I create a new Conda environment, which has got Python 3.12, which doesn't affect anything else on my machine. I've called it Chatterbox. I've then activated that environment. I then installed, using pip, the Chatterbox TTS, and then I'm going to use the Gradio example there of the UI to be able to do this demonstration. So install Gradio. And then the only other thing that I needed to do then was I basically changed on the Gradio Python file. I just turned sharing off in terms of it has a mode where it can give you a live link to share when the session's open. I've turned it off and just set in browser to true to fire up the browser. I did have some issues, which you can see on the troubleshooting section here. So there's a little Python script there to show you if PyTorch can see your GPU. If it can't, I'll give you some instructions on how to install that to be able to allow it to use your GPU, because it won't work with CPU. So basically, there's some instructions, and in terms of the actual changes here, I just basically changed the launch parameters just to control how that is consumed. So, right, so what have we got here then? So we've got a console window open, we're running Anaconda, and we've already changed the Chatterbox environment that I've created using that command. And then all we need to do to fire it up is to basically run this Python command to fire up the Gradio UI to allow us to be able to do something with it. So let's fire that up now. So we'll do that. Let's give that a second, and at some point that should appear. Let's just go to it natively, and let's go here. There we go. So I fired it up, and there we have the UI to allow us to consume this engine. So the first time you run it and you try and do something, you'll find that the processing time will take a little bit of time, because what it's doing in the background, it's going to pull down this model that's required, which is quite a small model, which is 0.5 gigabyte. Now, the advantage of that is that even on a very basic 8 gigabyte graphics card, you'll be able to run this. It uses about 3, 4, 5 gigabytes when it's doing the processing, so you'll easily be able to run it. I mean, a lot of things you need to do now with generative AI, you need a more capable card, so 12 gigabytes is kind of becoming the minimum, 16 maybe, and with the 5000 series now you can go up to 32 gigabytes on local desktops. Now obviously you're not going to run the BMOS 70 billion plus parameter models there, but as I say, we're moving to a mode where I think we're going to see smaller, more capable models, more deterministic models, so you'll be able to do a lot of stuff with a reasonable graphics card to be able to do that. So right, first of all, let's just give it a go with the boilerplate text it's provided and let it generate some output. So let's do that now. So let's fire off the generate. There's some more options here. A random seed, not too sure what that is. I know what temperature does. There's exaggeration and pace. We're just going to leave it with the default, so I don't want any crazy intonation in there. So let's go away and let's see what it can do. So it's processing at the moment. Should take maybe 10, 15 seconds. And there we go. So let's play that TTS.
Now let's make my mum's favorite. So 3 Mars bars into the pan.
The TTS.
Then we add the tuna and just stir for a bit.
Quite an
just
impressive
let the chocolate
version
and fish infuse. A sprinkle of olive oil and some
converting
tomato
that to
ketchup.
TTS.
Now smell that.
Now, one of the things you can do with this.
Incredible.
Sorry, I'm talking over it, but you can get the gist. It sounds like a human voice, and it's fairly reasonable. Is you can actually clone a voice. So just a very simple demonstration there of us doing that. So let me do that now. So what I did on my original demonstration is I took a 20-second audio segment at the start of it, and then I saved that as a WAV file. We'll use that as the input for this, and then we'll get it to try and read it back using my voice to see how it sounds. So let's do that now. Let me just go away and find out where I stuck it here. So let me drag on my sample. So there is my sample, and this is me speaking an introduction.
Hello. Happy Sunday. Hope you're having a great day. Sunday where I am, but happy whatever day of the week it is, wherever you are.
So we don't think we need to listen to all of that. It's just a reasonable amount of audio for the model to be able to do something. So what we'll do now, no bells and whistles, we'll go away and make it, basically take that same statement and read it out as though it was my voice, and let's see how good a job it does of it. So let's let it generate that now. So we're generating, it's processing. You can see you get this sort of representation of progress. So it's very fast, even on a very sort of consumer grade GPU. So we'll let it go away and do that, and it's generating it now. And in a few seconds it should be ready, and then we'll go away and play it. So there we go. So now we'll play the audio. So let's do that now.
Now let's make my mum's favourite. So 3 Mars bars into the pan, then we add the tuna and just stir for a bit. Just let the chocolate and fish infuse. A sprinkle of olive oil and some tomato ketchup. Now smell that. Oh boy, this is going to be incredible.
So there we go. I think you'll see that that's quite impressive. I mean, I'm even convinced that's me. Maybe I have a twin brother that I never knew about and nobody told me about. So basically, you can see using a very tiny nano model here, focused on the capabilities of replicated speech, and I think it's only trained on English at the moment, but it's done a very good job of actually pivoting a very short sample, normally you need a long sample to do this, into something that clones a voice and is a reasonable representation of it. So really, nano models are what it's all about. So more focused models on things that are related to a thing you want to do, rather than using a more expensive, in terms of inference and compute, behemoth model that does everything, or even using a mixture of experts to be able to make those more capable and cheaper to run, but actually using focus models that focus on something. And that's one of the things that we're going to see in terms of us being able to do things like actually writing less code, because these nano models open whole new possibilities for replacing whole things that we used to be code with things that aren't code. We'll still write a lot of code, but we'll be focused on more advanced capabilities to be able to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace on using that code. So that will be something that we'll be seeing. We'll be seeing more deterministic models to be able to empower those outcomes. It's not really possible today. I've been doing it, and I'll be showing some demonstrations where I've been doing it, but over time, better deterministic models will make this a much more simpler user experience. So instead of spending a year writing a UI and a backend and an API to do something, this is the kind of thing that you'll be able to do in days using these kind of paradigms. That's going to be the next big thing in generative AI. I've called it pretty well thus far. If you look back on my LinkedIn about on the times when I posted things, I was well ahead of where things were going. So I think that's the next step here. So I thought I'd just give you a very quick demonstration of this. Now, getting it installed, I'll put some notes on the YouTube page on how to work around some of the requirement issues I had that hopefully will help you if you want to try it out yourself. And again, really, it's a very powerful demonstration of what you can do with very tiny models now. So that's really all I have to say for today. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. Look after yourself, take care, and bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.